Tekken 8 is just around the corner and gamers worldwide can't wait to get their hands on it. If you're new to the series and want to know what you've missed, or a veteran of the Iron Fist tournament who fancies a refresher, you've come to the right place. I'm Owen O'Donnell for the Infinite Review, and this is the complete storyline of Tekken so far. The trouble starts with Heihachi Mishima deciding to throw his 5-year-old son, Kazuya, off a cliff as a test of strength, and to ensure he is worthy of inheriting the Mishima Zaibatsu. For most family businesses, the only credentials you need are your birth cert, but not here. This is nepotism done right. Fortunately, the fall activates Kazuya's devil gene, which saves him and allows him to climb back up the cliff and begin a life of fighting all over the world, and always winning, until one day when he draws with Paul Phoenix, an American who rides a motorbike. You might consider Heihachi a bad father for throwing his son off a cliff, but there's a lighter side to his parenting style. He also adopted Lee, simply to annoy Kazuya. Now that he's making waves, Heihachi wants to test his son again, but Kazuya is unlikely to agree to another cliff toss. Instead, the King of Iron Fist tournament is announced in order to bait him out. Fighters from all over the world assemble to compete, including Jack, the USSR's latest super-slaughtering, super-killing military machine, and a ninja from space who may or may not also be an automaton. Anna Williams accuses her sister Nina Williams of stealing her shoe, so Nina slaps her. Anna cries before Nina reveals she does have Anna's shoe. This will be important later. Heihachi gets a little more than he bargains for when Kazuya does indeed prove his worth by winning the tournament, but also takes the opportunity to dish out some just desserts. He takes Heihachi to a cliff, drops him off the side, then turns to the camera and smiles. Heihachi Mishima is dead. 2 years later, and the once banal evil of the Mishima Zaibatsu has morphed into an active malevolence under Kazuya's leadership. Instead of simply being a humble mom-and-pop military-grade weapons manufacturer, the Zaibatsu expands to include genetic research and all-round bad bastard science. Kazuya begins to smuggle endangered species of animals for his scientists to rank by taste and pain tolerance. After knocking back a pint of white rhino tears, Kazuya announces the second King of Iron Fist tournament. The prize? $1 trillion. Now that's the kind of money that makes an elderly man climb back up a mountain he was thrown off. Once again, fighters from all around the world come together to compete, but Armor King never makes it because his armor is too heavy and sharp. Jun wants to arrest Kazuya for his animal crimes, but also wants to investigate the mysterious power she senses from him, which she knows she's not imagining because her father's ghost told her that the supernatural is real. Ghosts are always saying that, aren't they? She eventually confronts Kazuya, but instead of arresting him, she conceives a child with him, thanks to the magic of supernaturally good writing. Heihachi makes it to the final and confronts Kazuya, who unleashes the devil gene. But he's still not strong enough to defeat Heihachi because now that he has a child on the way, Kazuya feels conflicted. Heihachi wins the tournament and proves that caring about the lives of others makes you weak. He throws Kazuya into a volcano and heads home in a helicopter. Both the volcano and Jun erupt in their own unique ways as Jin enters the world. Kazuya Mishima is dead. And it's for the best because just look at this disc. Tekken 2 is clearly for perverts. 15 years later, and world peace has been achieved thanks to Heihachi's personal paramilitary organization called Tekken Force, which he created to protect and expand the Mishima Zaibatsu. Think about that next time you want to criticize big business.
Chicken.
While the Tekken Force are excavating an Aztec temple for decorations to put in Heihachi's newest ensuite, they're wiped out by Ogre, a god of fighting that isn't an alien, that would be silly, but is an ancient demon that was created by aliens. Once awakened, he begins to target fighters worldwide. Jin is now 15 years old and being raised by Jun, who senses Ogre is on his way. In fairness, she was right the last time she had notions, so she tells Jin that should anything happen to her, he's to go to Heihachi. Sure enough, Ogre shows up looking for trouble. Jin fights to protect Jun, but is knocked out. When he awakes, he sees his home has been burnt to the ground in a chip pan fire that Ogre started, and Jun is nowhere to be seen. An inconsolable Jin is overcome with revenge powers, and his inherited devil gene brands his left arm with an ancient symbol which happens to look very similar to what would have been considered a cool tribal tattoo in 1997. Following his mother's advice, he seeks out Heihachi, who takes him in, trains him, and enrolls him at Mishima High School, where he meets Xiaoyu and her pet panda, Panda. It's just good stuff, folks. 4 years later, Heihachi announces the King of Iron Fist 3. His hope is that once all the world's strongest fighters are in one place, Ogre will be baited out. And he is. And he's defeated by Paul. Maybe they should have tried injecting a rat with Paul's blood. Anyway, come on, give it up for Paul. Boola boss. I mean, in fairness, defeating a god of fighting can't have been easy, so well done, mate. Only messing. That wasn't even Ogre's final form. Don't you know he absorbed Heihachi's fighting force? I guess it's up to the boy in the box to defeat the true Ogre. Nice work, Jin. Unfortunately, he is then gunned down and shot in the brains by the very man who created world peace, proving that you really can't trust anyone. Thankfully, Jin is so full of energy that his devil gene brings him back from the brink, but with wings. Meanwhile, Brian Fury takes on a tank and wins. Brian used to be a police detective, and now he's a violent maniac with no morals. What a journey. These men are dead.
4.
2 years later, Heihachi and his scientists stir Ogre's blood and Heihachi's genome around in a cup, hoping that somehow this will grant him immortality. The experiment fails because they're missing one thing, and honestly, you're not going to believe this, but the missing ingredient is the devil gene. Oh man, if it had been anything else, they'd be fine, but Jin is still missing, and Kazuya was thrown into that volcano. No! Turns out his body is actually being kept in a fridge over at the G Corporation lab. So Heihachi sends in the troops to pick it up, but they're beaten up by Kazuya, who was just getting up anyway. Heihachi announces the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4 in the hopes of luring out Jin and Kazuya, and baits them with the ultimate prize, total control of the Mishima Zaibatsu. During the tournament, Jin is captured by the Tekken force, so the final comes down to Kazuya and Heihachi. Heihachi wins and shows Kazuya a chained up Jin. The devil in Kazuya comes out and explains that being dropped into the volcano caused Devil to split in half, and half of Devil stayed in Kazuya and half of the devil went into Jin and is inside Jin now. And Heihachi goes, right, that makes sense. Yes, I see what you mean. Devil split in half when I threw you in that volcano, and half of it got into you and the other half is in Jin. Gotcha. Devil then knocks out Heihachi and taunts Jin for unknown but good reasons, which causes Jin to go all devil mode and beat up his dad and then his granddad until a vision of Jun tells him to chill out and he flies off again. Meanwhile, Nina Williams, who is supposedly Irish but never shows any evidence of it, finally embraces her roots and begins taking sniper shots at British hotels. Queen Elizabeth II is dead.
5.
Mere moments later, G-Corp helicopters swoop in and deploy Jack 4 robots. Heihachi and Kazuya hold their own pretty well considering they were just beaten up by Jin, but Kazuya bounces and leaves Heihachi to die in an explosion. Heihachi Mishima is dead, according to Raven anyway, and who's going to argue with a man who can stand on top of a fighter jet? Upside down, no less.
Heihachi Mishima is dead.
That's that then. Wait! The Mishima Zaibatsu is still going, but under a shadowy new CEO. That's weird. They even announce a King of Iron Fist tournament. Who could... Oh, right. The explosion that killed Heihachi caused his father, Jinpachi, to resurrect and retake control of the Zaibatsu. How? Well, the thing is, and I hope you're sitting down for this, a vengeful spirit has possessed Jinpachi's body and given it immense power. I know. Jinpachi was the original founder of the Mishima Zaibatsu, which made a lot of money building military equipment during World War II for... Look, it doesn't matter who for. The important thing is that at some point, Jinpachi decided that World War II was bad and stopped supplying weapons to whoever. Sensing weakness, his son Heihachi launched a coup, sealed Jinpachi away, and fired evil Cole McGrath, and Nathan Drake into space. In the Iron Fist finals, Devil Jin returns to defeat Jinpachi and becomes the new boss of the Mishima Zaibatsu. You really gotta wonder what the internal emails are like there. Jinpachi Mishima is dead. Also, Ganryu, who was in love with Michelle, has now fallen for her inexplicably identical adopted daughter, Julia. And Asuka Kazama is originally believed to be Jin's cousin, but supposedly it's more complicated than that. Like so much of video game lore, this one's in the hands of the perverts now.
6.
Under Jin's leadership, the Mishima Zaibatsu severed their national ties and used their newfound independence to become their own global superpower. He also immediately declares war on every other nation on Earth, even Belgium, who, as far as I know, never did anything to anyone. Let me just check that actually, just to be sure. Oh! Wowee. Well, Jin's declaration is dragged mercilessly in the quote tweets, but no matter how well observed or funny the tweets are, they fail to stop war breaking out. Meanwhile, Kazuya has taken control of the world's other major conglomerate, G Corporation, where he places a bounty on his son's head. Unfazed, Jin announces the King of Iron Fist Tournament 6, the third King of Iron Fist tournament they've had this year, so far. Enter Lars Alexandersson. Now, I know you're looking at this guy and thinking, there's no way this guy matters, even if he does smack an oncoming rocket to one side. Well, he is a leader in the Tekken force who rebels after one too many war crimes, along with all the other soldiers who never thought killing civilians was something armies did. After a skirmish with G-Corp, he loses his memory. He then travels the world with Elisa, the so it's come to this android, while hiding from the Mishima Zaibatsu manhunt and trying to recover his past. So, yeah, he's not that important. Oh wait! He's actually the illegitimate son of Heihachi, which means he is immediately promoted into the characters who matter bracket. Sorry Bruce, maybe next time, eh? Oh, that's not fair. Tekken 6 did give Bruce something to do. He's a soldier fighting in the war, which is the perfect way to make sure you're remembered forever. Despite the war, audiences are still packing out wrestling shows, which begs the question, would people really still go to a wrestling match while their world collapsed around them? Lars gets his memories back when he meets Heihachi and shoots him, but Heihachi catches the bullet with his teeth because he's very strong. Oh, Heihachi is still alive, by the way. Which reminds me, I should have said earlier, but there's another ancient evil under another temple because the Tekken series is always reinventing itself. This time it's called Azazel, and it might destroy the world at some point. Best get over there and sort that out. At the temple, Lars fights his half-brother Kazuya, then Azazel, then Elisa, then Jin, who quotes Nietzsche and admits he started the war to awaken Azazel and save the world because only someone with the devil gene can beat Azazel. And Lars says, "What the fuck are you talking about, Jin? Billions are dead." And to avoid answering the question, Jin runs at Azazel's final form and explodes. Lars takes Elisa to Lee and drops her in for repairs. Jin Kazama is dead, and Law gives Paul and Steve the shits. Also, Brian finally gets some much needed character development when he throws a girder through a helicopter.
7.
Jin's war continues to rage. Azazel, the ultimate omelette, is dead and gone, but the few eggs Jin cracked to make that omelette were nations and societies. And the eggs keep cracking even though the omelette is finished and eaten, if you follow me. An unnamed reporter whose wife and child were killed in the war begins working on an expose of the Mishima Zaibatsu and G Corporation, bringing an air of stone-faced seriousness to a story about ghosts, magic robots, and monsters under temples. Nina controls the Mishima Zaibatsu in Jin's absence, but Heihachi fights his way back into the big chair and takes the reins again. Another whirlwind of internal emails ensue. He knows that the public aren't too fond of the Zaibatsu ever since it started a war that engulfed the world in flames, so to win back their favour, he hires Claudio, an exorcist who specialises in the devil gene, to expose Kazuya as the half-hellspawn he is. The plan literally is to get back into the public's good graces by showing them that the boss of the company, which is at war with the company that started a world war, has devil horns. Very sad to see the same man who once created world peace lowered to petty tabloid tactics. He also announces the 4th King of Iron Fist tournament of that year because folk just can't get enough of those. Claudio senses something, but he's not sure what. Jin's alive. Lars brings him to Violet Systems where Lee has been repairing Elisa. Lee explains that Heihachi only fathered Lars to prove that Kazuya inherited the devil gene from his mother Kazumi, and not him. Which really is the ultimate, he gets it from you, you know. Turns out Claudio was sensing Akuma from Street Fighter. Do not spend even a second of your time thinking about what the implications of this reveal are. Please. Akuma shows up and says he promised Kazumi he would kill Heihachi if she failed to, and Heihachi responds by doing something no other Tekken character has ever done before, no matter how many times the opportunity presented itself. He says, "That doesn't make any sense." If that were true, why on earth would he only show up to do the job 40 years later? But Akuma, who is no stranger to counters, replies with the frankly incredible, "Because I was waiting for you to get stronger."
The dancer. Just take a look at this.
They fight until a bunch of jackbots show up, so they fight those instead. Akuma defeats Heihachi, but not really, as stipulated in the Bandai Namco Capcom IP rules and regulations contract. Heihachi declares himself dead so that he can work in secret while Akuma travels to G Corporation's Millennium Tower to kill Kazuya. Heihachi broadcasts their fight to the world so everyone can get a right good look at the devil gene in action, then uses an orbital laser to blow up the tower. Kazuya survives and blows up the satellite, which then blows up a town. The public immediately forget about the devil Kazuya and go back to hating the Mishima Zaibatsu. Gotta say, the public in Tekken are very fickle. The reporter informs Heihachi about the big expose he's been writing, and to his surprise he gets invited over to hear the real goss. Heihachi tells him, "Look, Kazumi possessed the devil gene, so I had to kill her. It was self-defense. I also had to throw our 5-year-old son off a cliff to see if he had inherited the devil gene, again in self-defense. He's sorry he didn't kill Kazuya there and then, and takes full responsibility for any and all subsequent apocalypses that his family may have caused. But where's Negan in all of this?" Heihachi and Kazuya have their final battle in a volcano to keep their arms warm. Kazuya wins by blowing up Heihachi's heart and tossing his body into the volcano. Then Akuma appears for a fight out of contractual obligation. Neither is seen victorious because of the aforementioned contracts. Heihachi Mishima is dead, but no news organization runs the story because, well, it's a bit boy who cried wolf at this stage, isn't it? Heihachi dead, yeah? Sure, pal. You know who broke that story the last time? Heihachi. Jin chooses a fine time to wake up and joins Lars, Elisa and Lee on a rooftop. Jin looks at the war, his war, and nobly concedes that he should take responsibility for it. And he's going to do that by killing Kazuya. The reporter publishes his expose, but it gains little traction as a rival news outlet releases a "Which The Office GIF Are You?" quiz on the same day. Also, Brian throws another girder through another helicopter.
Great!
And that's your cliffhanger for Tekken 8. Do you want to see Jin free the world from Kazuya's forever war? Do you want Claudio to sense another major Capcom character? Let me know in the comments. Personally, all I want from Tekken 8 is Xiao Yu to get a 2D animated ending again, and to see a return of King's Home for live-action orphans. Now, is there anything else you should know before I go? Well, it's worth knowing Nina Williams once managed to save the world from a satellite that makes bubbles while her clothes were getting all torn up or lost entirely. John McClane lost his shoes, but Nina Williams managed a lot more with less. That's a real hero. That's 10 trillion tons of mayhem. Kazuya likes collecting sneakers, Snoop Dogg is canon, the Infinite Review podcast is really good. In the Tekken film from 2010, Jin has sex despite having a foot fetish.
Sorry, I was just admiring the toast.
I did mention the dinosaurs, right? One of them kills Anna. Speaking of Anna, Eddie is playable in Smash Court Tennis. Eliza is a 1,000-year-old vampire who Lily claims as her sister, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but then again, who's to say how families work? In Tekken the motion picture, they said Kazumi died during childbirth, but there's also a photo of her holding baby Kazuya. I mean, look, I'm not a doctor, but actually that reminds me, JC, the luchadora, is Julia in disguise. See, a woman who looks like Julia, but who isn't her adoptive mother, just another woman, unnamed, who also looks like Julia, is in a car accident on the same day she's meant to star in a wrestling show. So rather than informing her next of kin, Julia dons her costume and takes her place because she has to. Hey, if you can see another way to handle that situation, I'd love to hear it. And that's all I can tell you about Tekken. But what about all these characters, you ask? What are their stories? Well, sadly, that knowledge has been lost because there are too many adverts on fandom.com. Sorry.